Yes, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can use design to change human behavior. But first, I'm going to start with an everyday situation from my own life. Because this is actually the smile I've been aiming to get for years and years and years. And since I was 10, my dentist have told me, well, Sille, if you want to have a smile like that, you need to start using dental floss. And the thing is, I'm 35 now. So I started calculating the other day. And he's actually been telling me to use dental floss for the past 25 years and twice every year. So that must be at least 50 times. And I still don't do it. So why is that? I have all the motivation in the world. I have the knowledge. And I still can't change my behavior on an everyday basis. Well, basically it's because changing human behavior isn't a matter of having the right knowledge or right information, like Erica said, because we have tons of information out there. But it's not a matter of that. It's a matter of designing good choice architecture that takes human limitations into consideration. Well, how do we do that? The thing is, in order to figure out how do we do that, I think it's really important to look at why should we even do that. And if you imagine this, you're determined to lead a healthy lifestyle. And leading a healthy lifestyle starts with making healthy choices on an everyday basis. So when you go to the supermarket, you want to buy healthy stuff. So you plan to do that. And then you go to the supermarket. Here is the thing. You walk around the supermarket trying to figure out which products are the healthy ones. What should I get? Should I get carrots today? Apples? Whatever. So by the time you're at the register, you are so worn out and so low on blood sugar that it becomes almost impossible not to pick the candy bars and the mini pizzas and potato chips and whatever they place next to the register. And that is why it's placed there. So the challenge is that you went in with a plan. You went in with all the information, all the data about what being healthy actually means. But now you find yourself with a basket full of unhealthy choices. So on an everyday basis, we fail to follow our good intentions. And we fail to use the stairs, because a lot of the times we intend to use the stairs, but we end up taking the elevator instead. We want to drive safely, but we end up running red lights, and it goes on and on and on. So, the consequences of this are very scary. Because we are actually starting to self-destruct because of our everyday behavior. We are facing climate changes caused to overconsumption and the use of cars. And today, more than half the world population live in countries where people die from obesity rather than underweight. So all of these little everyday situations are really starting to cause problems for us. But this is where the how can we change that comes in. Because we can change that. And I actually find that designers, communicators, creators, we have the key to make the change necessary. Because just like Erica, I've been studying Kahneman. And the two systems that he talks about is the reflective system and automatic system. And the really important thing, if we want to change human behavior, we have to start out by acknowledging that we are not rational all the time. And this is the reason why. Basically, human behavior is controlled by two systems. Reflective system, or system 2, automatic system, system 1. They have different qualities. The reflective system is slow, it's effortful, and it's conscious. That is the system we use when we try to translate all the knowledge or information into actual behavior. And that's the knowledge or this thinking that we use when we're walking around the supermarket trying to figure out what are the healthy choices. And then we have the automatic system. That's effortless, and it's fast, and it's unconscious. And that's what we normally describe as habits, or anything we just do without thinking about it. The first time I drove a car, I was very reflective about it. I was paying so much attention, trying to figure out where are the gears. But then, as it proceeded, it became an automatic behavior for me. And now I can't even describe how I drive my kids to school every day, because it's just something I do without thinking about it. And the automatic thinking is also what makes us buy candy bars and mini pizzas at the register. Because the automatic thinking is controlled by instincts, it's controlled by cues in our surroundings and in the present moment. So, basically, the challenge is that we have been thinking about human beings being something like this, the rational agents, being able to take all the data in the world and process it and actually make our behavior follow that data and optimize our data based or our behavior based on data on an everyday basis. But the thing is, we are more like this. And 90% of the time, we are being automatic. So when we, as communicators and designers, keep addressing the Da Vinci Man, that's when we don't facilitate a change in behavior. Because we have to start out by acknowledging that this is the person we're dealing with. And we are like that as well. So, because of this, if we want to change human behavior, we can actually use data to do a really good thing, in my perspective. Because we can map out human behavior and use data to map out human behavior and use observations as well. Because if we want to change human behavior and not addressing the rational agent, we have to start out by doing a lot of observations, collecting a lot of data, showing us what do we actually do. Because once we start asking our target audience, if we do focus groups or interviews, we got to be aware of that their answers are going to be biased, and that because we are automatic 90% of the time, we won't even be able to explain why we do the things we do. But I'm going to show you an example. This is right in front of the terminals in Copenhagen Airport. They had a challenge. A lot of the travelers who were smoking were standing just outside the terminal doors and smoking. So me and a group of scientists got the job to change that behavior. And we could have started out asking these people, well, why are you smoking right there? Because you're actually ruining the ventilation system. You're throwing cigarette butts everywhere, making it really expensive for the airport to collect them after you. And you're also exposing others to secondhand smoking, because they have to go through the doors. But because 90% of our behavior is automatic, we didn't ask questions. We started observing. So we started counting. How many people walk out the door? How many people do this? How many people do this? How many people walk out and then go over here? Because what we were aiming for was to get them to smoke in the authorized smoking areas, where only 40% of them were smoking. So when we did our observations, we set up targets. How many people do we want to change behavior? What do we want them to do instead of standing here? Should they move 5 steps this way instead? And then we defined the barriers. What was keeping them from doing the right thing? And what we found when we did behavioral mappings was actually that a lot of the smokers actually intended to do the right thing, and they tried to do the right thing. Because they would come out from the terminals, and then they would look for cues in the surroundings telling them where to smoke. Because obviously they were kind of in a hurry, catching a flight or checking in luggage. So they would look for visual cues telling them, where can I smoke? But all the signs said no smoking. And there was no smoking signs all the way down. So that was a barrier. And what people did then was that, okay, so they couldn't see a solution, then they started looking at other people smoking. And they went over and sat or standed next to them and started smoking, actually trying to comply with the social norm in this area. So that was really great to see that there was actually an intention of doing the right thing. And the next step was that I started looking for systems in other arenas that facilitated the change we wanted to have in this area. And I found the system in German train stations. Because in German train stations, they have yellow lines and icons showing people intuitively where to smoke instead of telling them where not to smoke. And so basically what I did was to adjust the system and transfer it and implement it in Copenhagen Airport. So now it looks like this. And then we started testing the solutions. And what happened was from day one, we reduced the amount of people smoking in unauthorized areas by over 50%, just by creating yellow lines and icons showing them where to smoke. And we would have never come up with that solution if we had started asking people, why are you doing this? So, when changing human behavior, we have to create choice architecture that are good and that takes human limitations and psychology into consideration. And we can do it on so many different fields and improve human behavior in so many areas. This spring I worked with Danish consumers in supermarkets. And the challenge was to increase the amount of healthy choices they were making, and specifically focusing on vegetables. So again, I started observing the human behavior and observing the context, because that's another important thing. We got to look at the context. And I got all the data from the supermarkets, and I could see that what the customers were picking a lot of the time was actually all the products marked with yellow or orange splashes. And when I looked at all the healthy choices like cabbage and cucumber and stuff like that, none of them were marked with yellow or orange splashes. They all had natural colors, looking really healthy, and I can see from a selling point of view that would be the direction to go. But actually, when you map out the human behavior, we could see that people would pick the products with bright colors on them. So, solution was pretty simple. I added yellow splashes to the vegetables, which increased the amount of vegetables being sold by 48%. And this can be used on various fields. I use this methodology to also improve digital services, products in all kinds of fields. The last project I'm going to show you today is a project I did for the Danish Ministry of Taxation. They had the challenge of adolescents not adjusting their income at the self-service side. And what it does is that you can actually start your adult life with owing money to the tax man. So, mapping the human behavior, I found that the self-service side of the Ministry of Taxation was really complex and not complying with our automatic behavior or automatic thinking at all. So I started mapping the behavior of the target audience, and what I found was that they always interacted with interfaces that were really simple, using pictures, icons instead of text, and only human language. And they particularly, this group of people that I looked at, they were really familiar with the PlayStation interface. So I transferred that system into the self-service side, only giving them 5 entries, because that's all they needed, and making it all visual. And this increased the amount of people adjusting their self-service, or their, income with 20%. So, changing human behavior, to me, is a matter of not relying on data or information or knowledge, because human behavior doesn't follow that. But it is creating awesome, efficient choice architecture that starts with mapping out human behavior and take human limitations and psychology into consideration when doing so. And that's it. Thank you.